The Yankees bullpen is starting to find a little bit more of its shape as the weeks have gone on. Ian Hamilton has come back and he looked pretty sharp in his first few outings. Clay Holmes is someone that could potentially work better in a 7th or 8th inning role than a closing role. Luke Weaver has taken over the mantle of being the closer and has done a great job. And guys like Tommy Kahnle and Jake Cousins have performed very strongly in middle relief situations as big strikeout arms. They've even gotten big-time production from the likes of Tim Hill, who have come out of nowhere to produce valuable innings for the Yankees, and they could turn some of their starters into relievers as well, with candidates like Nestor Cortez or Marcus Stroman being on the board to provide some long relief. They still would have one spot left on the board, and with trade acquisition Mark Leiter Jr. not looking great, alongside the other trade acquisition they had in Enyel De Los Santos getting DFA'd very early into his Yankee tenure, they don't really have many options on the board that they can look at and have fill in that final bullpen spot. For guys like Scott Efros and Lou Trevino, their stuff has not returned to form since returning from the IL, and I don't foresee them having Yoendrys Gomez or Will Warren come up, considering they need a little more seasoning and the postseason is a different animal. The Yankees are going to need somebody to step up, but they might have a secret weapon waiting in the wings at the minor league level. Acquired in a deal that saw Joey Gallo go to the Los Angeles Dodgers after a terrible stretch with the Yankees in 2022, right-handed pitching prospect Clayton Beeter could be a guy the Yankees look at for a bullpen role this upcoming October. In an article with Greg Johnson of the Trentonian, Clayton Beeter hinted at the idea of potentially coming out of the bullpen in the postseason as something that actually might be on the table. This is an article that I found really interesting. I'll link it in the description, and I'll also link Greg Johnson's Twitter in the description. He's a very awesome minor league writer. He covers the Somerset Patriots. He does a great job at it, so make sure you guys check that out. And I think it poses a very interesting question of whether the Yankees should actually call up Clayton Beeter and have him become their secret weapon out of the bullpen. Before we get into today's video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our posts. And check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. Links are all in the description at Fireside Yankees everywhere except Instagram where it's at fireside.yankees. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. What immediately stands out about Clayton Beeter is his slider. It's his signature pitch. It's an excellent pitch. It misses a ton of bats, and he seems to have a really good understanding of how to use it in counts and how to get batters out with it. This pitch will not necessarily stand out from a pitch movement standpoint, and most people may look at the pitch specs of this pitch and initially read it as this is an average slider, this is an easy to hit slider, this is a flat slider, but that's not really the case. You see, how to read vertical break and horizontal break and how it plays off of your other pitches is a really important part of understanding what makes for a strong pitch and overall a good pitcher. Clayton Beeter's slider averages about 1 to 2 inches of horizontal break. This may not seem like a good quirk to have in a slider, but when you look at how much his slider drops and how it plays off his fastball, which we'll get into in a bit, you'll understand that this pitch is the perfect pitch to pair with a fastball like his. Add on to the fact that he released his slider from a higher release point than you would expect from somebody at his height, and you have a pitch that is really hard to get on top of, and a lot of batters find themselves swinging over it or chasing it out of zone. This season, batters have a 48.9% whiff rate and a 36% chase rate against Clayton Beeter's slider, totaling a 165 weighted on base average, also known as WOBA, which is really good for a pitch. It plays extremely well off of his fastball, as I mentioned earlier, with the main reason being that his four-seam fastball generates a lot of ride up in the zone, and it has a good bit of velocity separation off his breaking ball. His fastball is a pitch that has fluctuated a lot in velocity in recent years. We've seen him average 92 to 93 miles an hour for most of the AAA season last year, before upticking to 94 miles an hour in September. We saw him enter spring training sitting 94.6 miles an hour on his fastball before the AAA season kicked off, and he was sitting closer to 92 miles an hour again, which is something that could be attributed to the shoulder injury he had that knocked him out for so much time. And since coming back from the IL, we've seen more of that 95, 96 mile an hour fastball that will help him play a lot more up in zone and get some swings and misses. his fastball releasing from a really high slot makes the vertical break a lot less deceptive than it would be for other pitchers, but he's still generating around 17 to 18 inches of induced vertical break. That's around the Garrett Cole territory in terms of vertical movement. That's where Garrett Cole's fastball lives. That's kind of where Clayton Beeter's fastball lives as well. The difference is that Cole's release height is a little bit lower, and Cole has obviously much better command of his four-seamer than Clayton Beeter does. The other weird quirk in Clayton Beeter's fastball is that it doesn't generate a lot of arm side movement, averaging about 2 to 3 inches of horizontal movement to the arm side. When pitches like a four-seam fastball average around 2 to 3 inches of horizontal break, it also means it ends up accidentally cutting. And that means that Clayton Beeter sometimes throws a fastball that to batters is perceived as cutting away from them, causing some added deception and making him even harder to hit. Since his slider and fastball don't have much horizontal movement, they share a very similar horizontal plane, and that massive vertical separation can be really hard for hitters to pick up and identify, causing them to make poor swing decisions against Beeter, and of course, swing and miss a ton. His strikeout rate was just north of 32% this year in AAA, with a 2.53 ERA in the International League, where the average ERA this season is 5.15, and it's not like Scranton has particularly been pitcher friendly this season. This pitch sets up his slider so well, and I look at his arsenal as the kind of arsenal that would play really well in a bullpen role, but there are a couple of things that Beeter has to work on or has worked on that would need to go his way in order for me to think that he's capable of being trusted in the postseason. First and foremost, it's command. Beeter walked roughly 15% of batters faced this season, which is higher than it was last year, but I have a couple of theories as to why that's the case. Number one, the shoulder injury. The fact he was dealing with a shoulder injury and tried to pitch through it before being shut down would indicate that he wasn't fully all the way there mechanically, and that is both impressive that he pitched very well and a little bit concerning for the command that it decreased so much once he experienced some sense of soreness. Perhaps there's a chance he's not fully ready to handle the starter's workload, but that's a problem that the Yankees wouldn't have to worry about if they're talking about him strictly as a reliever. There is one thing that I think he's done since returning from the IL to try and work on his command and artificially find more ways to throw strikes, because his strike rate and his zone rate this season were not good enough. Only 43% of pitches that he threw in AAA were in zone this season. That's 5% worse than AAA average, and it takes a certain kind of pitcher who has a very unique arsenal or a very unique attack plan to execute that and have consistent success. But Beeter is trying to come out of the set instead of the windup with nobody on in his bullpen role, and I think there's a big reason for it. Over the last 2 seasons in AAA, Clayton Beeter has walked around 12 to 13% of batters faced when there were runners on versus 15% of batters faced when there was no one on. When there's no one on, Clayton Beeter's coming out of the windup. When there's people on, he's coming out of the set. So the fact that his walk rate decreased coming out of the set could perhaps indicate that there's a little more strike throwing consistency from that delivery point. By coming out of the set, it simplifies his mechanics. It allows him to kind of just get the ball and throw, get into something of a rhythm. I wonder if maybe the Yankees feel that his mechanics are a little too clunky. Maybe they feel he's not able to consistently get to the right arm slot or the right release points when he's throwing from his windup. And if the Yankees found something legitimate here, that could be really exciting, because if he can have even some semblance of command, then he'll be a very effective reliever. I stand by the opinion that Clayton Beeter right now could be a competent major league reliever. It's just a question of whether he can be consistent enough to work in a postseason environment right off the gate. You see, I get a lot of Chad Green vibes from Clayton Beeter, and I mean that in a really good way. His fastball is actually very comparable to Chad Green's in terms of release height and vertical movement, and while Chad Green's fastball maybe had a little more velocity, Beeter's shown the capability to throw pretty hard too in shorter spurts. If it's 95 to 96, that's going to play, especially with his vertical movement and especially with his slider, because his slider is going to play very well off the fastball. It's played well off the fastball historically. It's the kind of pitch that you're going to be able to throw to lefties and righties. And overall, that's the encouraging part. There isn't a massive hole in his game outside of command, and command is one of those things that, going from a starting to a bullpen role, typically gets better because you just don't have to throw so many pitches. You don't have to sequence so much. You just throw your two best pitches, your two most comfortable pitches, and you just attack guys. You go after them, you try to get swings and misses. That's all Beeter's going to have to do. And right now, I don't think the Yankees are in a position where they can necessarily be picky about who they have as their 13th reliever. Mark Leiter Jr. has not displayed having an above average fastball or even an average fastball since joining the Yankees, and for guys like Scott Efros and Lou Trevino, they suffer from a similar problem. I think a really good reliever needs to have one of two things: either a very dominant and outlier secondary pitch that allows them to throw that as much as possible and not really worry about their fastball, or have a really good fastball to pair with a really good secondary pitch. I think Beeter's fastball is a 55 grade pitch when it's sitting 95, 96, and I think his slider is a 70 to 75 grade pitch, especially since he can uptick that in velocity. The crazy whiff rates, the crazy chase rates, the unreal performance against right-handed and left-handed batters from that slider, it's when he's sitting at 83, 84. Crank that up to 88 or 87, and we're talking about a sharp weapon that is just devastating and is going to carve through lineups like butter. It's a lot similar to someone like Ian Hamilton in that regard, as his slider can move either horizontally toward the batter or away from the batter, depending on how it releases out of the hand. This pitch is truly a buzzsaw pitch. We're kind of seeing an uptick in these breaking balls that don't move much horizontally, but have sharp vertical drop. Think of Jordan Montgomery's death ball from last season, Kumar Rocker's curveball when his amazing debut from last night. I just mentioned Ian Hamilton and his buzzsaw slider. These breaking balls have taken over Major League Baseball and have become massive whiff machines. And I think Clayton Beeter's breaking ball is one of the better pitches in the organization. And because of that fact alone, he's going to be able to throw it a ton with his fastball and get tons of swings and misses. You see, the Yankees bullpen just needs an X factor. They need somebody to step up outside of their current guys and do a job. And I think Clayton Beeter is more than capable of being that kind of pitcher. His stuff is upticked in a bullpen role. We've seen him refine and reshape his mechanics to try and get some more velocity and find a little more consistency in his command. And his breaking ball is truly brilliant. So if the Yankees want to find somebody in their organization to fill that last bullpen spot come October, Clayton Beeter might just be their best bet. If you enjoyed today's video, let us know in the comment section below by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Turn on the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when we post. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page, all under Fireside Yankees, except on Instagram where it's at fireside.yankees. You guys can also check out Fireside Bets. It's NFL season. You guys need to be all up in that. We're making you guys some money. Of course, bet responsibly and only if you're older than 21. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we appreciate you guys being here, sticking through to the end. We'll see you guys in the next one. Let's go Yankees, everybody. Peace out.
Perfect.